Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Lab by Ecomcy, the place where A related to Amazon FBA part level and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. And today we'll be our special guest. His name is Hammad, and he's the growth lead at Ecomcy, which is basically they specialize on empowering e-commerce businesses through technology. And that's why I wanted to bring Hammad today because some of the conversations that lately I've been hearing around the space is like, what are the different cycles that you as a basically business owner in the e-commerce space need to understand and navigate to successfully scale your business forward, because as we all know, business have different stages, and if you don't understand those effectively, then it's going to be difficult for you as a founder to understand where you have to put your efforts to get the best result at a specific point during the timeline, right? So Ahmad, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for
Glad to
coming.
be
How you
here.
doing?
Glad to be here, Vincent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. It's a pleasure, and I know today you're gonna be dropping some insightful, insights from your experience and everything you've been doing in the e-commerce space. I guess for those that might don't know you, let's start there actually with a little bit of background on yourself, the company Archemative, and then of course let's dive into the topic. Yeah.
Sure, Vincent. Just for the starter, we have been talking, you and I, and your insights on the topic, they have been really helpful as well, right? I am very excited to have this conversation in front of your audience,
Same.
and let's take it from there. So, as far as Uh, it feels like, I'm doing this pretty long, right? So I've
Yeah.
been part of the enterprise ecosystem, the e-commerce ecosystem for almost good 13, 14 years now,
Well,
right? So mainly, I've been focused as a marketing and, the growth person for businesses, for medium, large size businesses, and small businesses for that matter. My role has been revolving around marketing and growth. And when I say growth, we actually work with different life cycles, right? So different life cycles is basically when the business is, at the build stage, for example. What does that take? What are the challenges when you
yeah.
are at that scale? And then, from there, how do you run it? What kind of a tech stack that you need, require, the challenges, the agonies, every days. Then when you get into the grow phase and then the scale phase. So this has been part of, a huge part of my life, and the team's been around. So this is pretty much it at a high level as far as the Alchemative is concerned. So I've been part of the Alchemative ecosystem for almost last 2 years. And
Well,
then I formally started this when we started expanding. We started to be in this geo, the North Americas, and I'm the growth person for that,
yeah.
head of growth to be precise. And then, at a high level, Alchemative, that's been around 2014. It started as software development, as
Well,
DNA of it. 2016 moved into e-commerce, Shopify Plus partners. We actually have had been fortunate and privileged to work with and learn from these great brands like, we work with Toyota, we work with Hush Puppies, we work with Levi's, etc., and small size businesses as well. So we have, as an organization, we have seen all these stages and we understand the life cycle.
awesome.
Um, so this is pretty much it at a high level.
Well, thank you so much. And I think that's exactly why I wanted to have you aboard, because given the fact that you have basically experienced all these stages multiple times with your clients, that by trade essentially have allow you to identify what are some of the specific methodologies throughout these stages that have essentially allowed these companies to get to the next phase. And I guess for those that might still not be aware of these different stages, let's start there. Like from your experience, what are some of the stages that you would say define e-commerce business in terms of what are usually the main ones, and then from there let's dive into those and specify what are some of the things you have to consider, what are usually the challenges, and how you can overcome it as a founder. Yeah.
You see, these are pretty obvious, and back of every entrepreneur, every business owner, where you actually have these phases, but these phases are not really defined. So if we kind of, put a definition around it, this is how normally we as an agency, e-commerce agency, or, folks who've been around for a long time, we will work this in a structured way, right? So first phase is where you are building your business, right? That build could be different for different people and businesses, but normally in e-commerce space, the standard would be when you're, building or putting together a store, maybe on
Yes.
Shopify, on Wix, on, any of your store of your choice, or maybe if you start to work in a marketplace, Amazon or any other marketplace out there. So, if the build is something which is, what would you do? So, store is defined. Now, what are the other challenges that you're doing? For example, you have picked up Shopify,
Hmm.
UI, UX things. Your product is already there. You're gonna basically do. How would you define your UI, UX, right? How would you envision at that time? At
Yeah.
this very moment, there wouldn't be any data, right? So how would that UI UX in your head would impact your business? Content operations, how would you put that together? And then comes the run part. Normally, build is the phase which is the initial small kind of framework, unless you are into rebuild. I'm not
Hmm.
going to touch or go into the
Yep.
rebuild part.
Hmm.
Then you've put all the shop together. Now, how would you
Hmm.
run that? What exactly do you need to
Yeah.
run that business? The challenges in running, right? So product data management, for example, fulfillment, what kind of 3PLs that you would want to integrate
Yeah.
your existing stores, maybe
Yeah.
um, you know, customer experience, how would you basically start getting those maybe notifications so that you
Yep.
basically start understanding how is your store or products
Mm.
basically influencing the customer experience.
Yeah, it's
Then the
essentially
growth
designing
part.
the guidelines, right? It's the guidelines in terms for as a brand. What is gonna define you? Like, what is gonna be your message in terms of, as you mentioned, in the experience you're giving to your clients. On top of that, what is gonna be the structure on the back end that's gonna sustain that kind of essentially logistic in the front end, and I guess design the whole ecosystem, because I agree, a lot of people, when they are on the building phase and then they want to jump into the wrong phase of getting started, they really struggle to define like a clear path in terms of, okay, these are going to be my providers and these are the ones I'm going to stick to, because you see that all the time. There's so many shiny objects, so many options, and I feel if you don't do your homework and choose the one that's really tailored to what you need, you can end up jumping from ship to ship, and essentially you never start getting that snowball effect that's going to take you to the next stage, so.
And this is Vincenzo, this is very interesting, right? Because when the business owners are transitioning from build to run, of course, and the run is the phase which pretty comes quickly when
Mm.
you build the thing, right? So build and run essentially are not very far from each other.
Mm.
So what happens there is, for example, the business owners normally, what they do is, they are, ambitious people, business owners, right?
Mhm.
So what they do essentially is they learn while on the job, right? So in many of the instances, they build the plane while flying.
Exactly.
So and uh, so there's one way is that you do that. There will be a certain cost that you will have to pay, right? It could be money directly. It could be, time to market cost in terms of the time.
Yeah.
There's another way is that to hire an agency or a vendor
Mhm.
or someone expert from the market. But again, it's a chicken egg situation that at that stage you might not be big enough to afford an agency.
Exactly.
So how do you do that? I think with it's enough if you start relying on the platforms itself, there is enough material which could basically give you at least an idea what to expect at what stage, right? Like a project management. This will be milestone one, this will be milestone two, milestone three.
Mhm.
For example, in the run stage, customer experience is something, if you're really up to it, you could make this a priority. And then maybe you start moving towards the integration part. I do not know
Mhm.
your product. It depends on what kind of product that you are in, what kind of market that you're selling into. And normally, when you move from this phase to the next phase, which is when you're really growing,
Hmm.
That is something I would suggest that you should start taking help from an agency. I think most
Yeah.
of the people they do, but their dependence gets too much on an agency
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah.
The
Which
growth.
again, something I want to add here because I'm sure I'm gonna get this question. When you're doing the growth, when you're doing the run, and the run stages, right? Is at this stage you would say that you should by then already start doing your homework in terms of which service providers to work with, and start doing your diligence, because I guess the last thing you want is that the run stage is getting to a phase that now you need to jump into a growth phase, and then if you haven't done your diligence in terms of starting interviewing potential partners here and there, you're basically gonna bottleneck yourself into the growth phase because you didn't do the homework in advance. So I guess from a timeline perspective, what is usually the period you see a run stage looking like in terms of maybe months or years? I know this is going to be heavily dependent on the type of business, and usually how much in advance you should start preparing for growth phase. Yeah.
I think build and run we already kind of defined, and I think you and I we agree on this part that build and run they're pretty close, right? The
Mm,
moment you build, the run part kind of comes pretty quick.
cool.
The growth part primarily, it's not about when it comes, right? The moment you're gonna basically switch on one campaign,
I see.
Vincenzo, the growth part in one way or the other will start coming in.
By nature. Yeah.
But yeah, but it will happen naturally, right? But what when the growth phase starts, when the first campaign starts or the second phase starts, what do you need to have in your arsenal, right? What kind of anticipation you should definitely have on a paper, that would be amazing, but at least very clear in your head, which will be that what kind of growth channels that I would be opening,
Hmm.
and for that, for example, what integrations do I need? What data I should be looking at? Is that data being, orchestrated in a way that is meaningful for you, that could provide good customer experience or good kind of learning for you to act upon? These are the kind of things that you must have when you are getting into the growth stage. Because you see, any wrong decision or any wrong foot, that basically is gonna bleed money. It's gonna bleed your reputation. It's gonna bleed your operation, right? So customer
Yeah.
experience could become one of the casualties pretty quick. And recovering from one bad brand experience, it takes a lot of time and energy. You don't want to basically do that. But this is a stage where I recommend that, people should basically go out and start having some kind of expert consulting. It's going to cost you money, but it's not going to cost you the money,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that is one thing. Again,
Cool.
putting a time around this. Normally, I would say we see um, you know 3 to 6 months would be something a fair
Mhm.
amount. But again, it depends. As you were
It's gonna
saying, it
tailor
depends.
on the
Yeah,
type of
it
business.
varies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, during the growth phase, so we can start transitioning to that one. We know for a fact that something that's going to be growth is traffic, and traffic by nature, especially on today's day and age, is like it's all about social media. It's all about getting your voice out there, and I feel like that is essentially what is gonna help you, catapult your business, like really getting the social presence, and doing advertisement in those networks. So, what are you seeing in terms of the importance of this methodology during the growth phase? What are some of the maybe strategies or tools you would recommend for that?
So, growth stage, this is how I basically define, right? So once you've had put together a plan of your goals and then, engaging someone from outside or by I'm not pushing the agency per se, right? Whatever your way is, if you are an expert yourself or you have a team of experts, fair enough. But the expert input insights needs to come in.
Mm,
So, for example, if you're going to start putting in the performance marketing or social media, all that traffic kind of a
yeah.
play, that's going to happen because of the content that you would create, right? It's not going to happen sustainable. The sustainability basically comes through the content marketing or content play that you will going to put together. For that, do you, again, what kind of a plan, what kind of a brand identity you would have to basically get support from the content that you will be
Mm,
putting together. Then again, the tech stack. For example, are you into conversational commerce at this stage? You should do that. Are you going to deploy the push bots to basically provide that customer experience? And for loyalty, are you using any tech stack? Or are you going to use something which is, you're going to put some people behind providing that customer experience, through the chats, through the customer support, etc., etc. Then most important is the visibility because the growth is messy, right? Growth basically tells one system needs to be integrated, one CRM needs to be integrated, an ERP will be integrated. Your 3PL integrations gonna get integrated into this. So the system is very messy. Now, when it's messy, the visibility becomes a challenge, right? For
yeah.
example, an order is coming in, what channel is it coming through?
Mm-hmm.
And then, when it's getting from, for example, your warehouse, and if you have multiple warehouses, which warehouse is it coming from? Is it going through USPS? What exactly is working cheap? I mean, these things got to have some kind of stitched together, which aka means integrations in our case, through an omni-channel, a retail omni-channel kind of a solution. The visibility got to be there, right? So, and then at this stage, most of the businesses, retail brands, they basically get into customer experience in terms of launching a
Mm-hmm.
mobile app or maturing that mobile app as well, right? So multiple in-house owned kind of channels through that. So these are the things that happens pretty quick once you are into the growth stage. And this is how, in my opinion, it should go into the play.
Cool. Now, when it comes to this, at the end of the day, the question I get a lot during the growth stage is like how you quantify and define success, right? Because at the end of the day, you can start getting the exposure, you can start getting some sales, but sometimes difficult to really, create a baseline, like in terms of, okay, I'm actually growing. It's actually this is the direction I want to go to with the business. Is the growth rate and having a competitive enough to make it in the long term. I guess those are questions that as a founder you ask yourself every day in terms of making sure the ship is going the right direction. So from your experience, how you can come basically to understand if you actually growing at the right pace and everything. Is there some kind of research you recommend doing along those lines, or some kind of way of defining what is the baseline, where I am and where I need to go, right?
Excellent question. We basically have a lot of conversations around this, Vincenzo. Um, Look, so normally, in the technology business, I'm not necessarily
Hmm.
saying e-commerce. In the technology business, one of the amazing thing that happens is, oh, we do not have any competitor, right?
Mm,
But when you get to the e-commerce world, that is not a very
yeah,
huge advantage, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because your competitors and, in e-commerce space,
Can
whichever
help you
vertical you
sometimes.
are,
Can help you how
they
to.
help you, exactly. They help you sometimes,
Okay.
at for the beginning and actually through the run and growth stage and all those stages, and even scale. You will have for any vertical, any industry, you would have some kind of a competition to look up to, right? If you are the biggest, right? Even that has some interesting challenges, but of course that is not subject of this conversation, please. Um, Now, that is one very good start, right? And and never rely on one competition. There will be competitions which are big, whose growth are now stalled, might be bigger than you, but they would
Mm,
have a certain acceleration at certain phase. You might right now be in that phase, right?
exactly.
That is a good starting point. That's one. Always I say this: respect your competition. You got to basically talk them down, but any athletes, when even they talk each other down, but they respect each other ability.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is one very good reference. And then when you are in the growth stage and with very initial stage, you have got your data coming in, right? That's your own truth. Now, this is not outside in. This is
Yeah,
your own truth now. You got to live that truth. Which channels are working good for you? what are the standards. There are reports from these market analyst researchers, which gives you kind of a general industry trend. Make those your North Stars when you do not have your own truth, right? So make them your
Mhm.
truth. So the competition, the market research, and when your data start coming in, live your data. How do you grow that? What are your goals? If you're doing better, how are you doing better, right? You need to know. And even if you are failing, what exactly is the reason? Rely
Exactly.
a lot on data. So,
Yeah.
and not only the data, your own data, right? Your own
Exactly.
truth.
Yeah. Important. Now, once we go over the growth phase, I'm assuming maybe you can build on top of this. The next thing will be scaling, right? It keeps scaling to as much as possible. But at the end of the day, it's important for business when they go into this scale mode to understand. Okay, first of all, what is gonna be some of the stages I can get to when it comes to scale because I need to know how I keep a sustainable growth, right? It's gonna reach a point that it's not only about scaling, because then you might grow your expenses significantly or your overhead and all of that. And it reaches a point that the business is actually not even cannot even be managed in the first place. So how you reach a point where we are into that scale mode that okay, this is where I have to go to stay sustainable, but at the same time have a healthy scale month after month. So yeah.
Look, again, like growth stage and putting together those parameters for what your success looks like. Scale stage also needs to have some kind of parameters.
Hmm.
For example, for some businesses, scaling would be moving into multiple geos or multiple states. That will be one part. Now, another scale is primarily when it looks like you got to move. Now you were selling something on the website, and now you need to move to the market spaces, right? For example, you had one market space, and now you move
Hmm.
to multiple market spaces. You actually had a B2C play, now you would want to have a B2B play as
Hmm.
well. So these are mostly the things that happens through the scale stage, right? These are the challenges. Now, as part of the investment, the good thing about scalability part is most of the investments are very predictable, right? Because if you want to move into the geos, for example, you would want to have to deal with different regulators. You know those costs which will be incurred. You could make a plan around that. Growth phase is little tricky in terms of if you do not have very clear goals. For now, I think few years back, the major e-commerce platforms, for example, let's take the example of Shopify. Shopify is very significantly it has evolved. It has got into the leading kind of a space. But Shopify, to be able to move to another country, you Shopify what they used to do was they used to you had to build a new store in Shopify, right? And that was one of the major pain points.
Yeah.
Now they are changing. They are basically seeing the market trend and need of the customer. Shopify, I really am a fan of Shopify for the reason
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
they listen to they seem to listen to the audience a lot. And what they've done is now they basically just got to do one store and multiple territories. They kind of start getting added into one simple store. So someone sitting in the head office of a brand could basically see how is US doing, how is Canada doing, how is Mexico doing, UK, Europe, Asia, India, Pakistan, Dubai. Well, all these things. Now you could basically get the overall thing. Now, once you are into the scale part, there are few very important things you got to do. Visibility scaling, although predictable, but it is again messy. So many moving parts, right? Different
Yeah.
territories, different systems, different 3PLs, 4PLs,
Yeah.
5PLs. And if you're in manufacturing, it's a
Even
really
more.
interesting kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So if you're getting your things being tailored in for example, in Beijing or maybe in a different state, you need to see that your designers they have designed the an apparel or a t-shirt and it's on time to the manufacturer side. The manufacturer has manufactured this on time. They basically had this into the shipping
Hmm.
part, on time. The shipment is on time to the warehouse, from the warehouse to
It's a lot of
uh,
back and
yeah,
forth.
it's so each entity that I've said using their own CRM or ERP, right? This means a lot of moving parts. And then, seasons are there, seasons are involved from high-end stores to the low cost, all these things, visibility, integrations, omni-channel retail solutions. That is one major part in the scale part. That's one. Visibility, the scaling is most of the times that's visibility. And you take any of the brand in the whole planet, they would want to have more visibility, right? And this is
Exactly.
a pain point of the executive. The scale part is about the visibility, about having multiple channels of everything, right? So you should have more than one manufacturer or manufacturing site. We have seen that, when COVID happened, the world has basically seen that the supply chain, if you look at it, the supply chain is something which has not evolved in 70, 80 years, right? The thing is manufactured somewhere offshore,
Hmm.
gets on a ship, then to shores, a truck, and then, so this has not evolved a lot. And when a little bit of a problem happened, the world was kind of freeze. The Suez Canal kind of the ship was stuck and the whole supply chain route was, it was
I
all
know.
disrupted.
Yeah.
So visibility is important. You got to see there are conflicts, global conflicts happening, and we live in a world where we need to have visibility to be able to address these upcoming challenges, right?
Exactly.
So that's the
Yeah, I
scale
think to
part.
add to that as well, it's like as a business and to start concluding, it's like you have to be agile because there's so many new technologies keep coming into play, and if and new strategies, and if you don't take those into consideration, your competition does. They're gonna overcome you, right? They're gonna become more savvy about what they do. They're gonna be more effective in terms of their marketing and logistics. And if you don't keep evolving and you have a culture of be on top of trends, like that can also be something that can significant affect how effectively you go through all these stages as a company. Yeah, yeah.
And any of this disruption, absolutely. So the wise, your competition, any one opportunity that's been leveraged that you did not pick and your competition did, the brand perception just gets changed so quick, so quick. And you need to be really smart about these. These kind of simple operational things been happening. At times you do not realize, right? At times you do not realize that
Mhm.
Amazon does a great job. If you are their Prime member, they get you thing next day. You might have noticed at some stage, if the moment you take off the Prime membership, the experience just gets, in a very tricky way. But the overall impression of Amazon as a brand is very consistent. It's very consistent. And if you go to somewhere else, if there is no great experience, and I'm talking about only the supply chain experience,
Mm.
you would eventually see and move back to Amazon, or you start comparing these things. I was buying this thing from this vendor, this was happening, and this sticks for a long time. And now the brand prowess that Amazon has right now, Vincenzo, that is basically all because of the non-fancy kind of work, right? These integrations, these supply chain visibility, the data is, making them they get getting these items delivered to you. But the brand impression is there. The moment that gets delayed for a day or two or for a week, again, people start questioning things. So this happens a lot. You got to keep the momentum on your operation going at all times, which equates to having good technology, good tech stack, good understanding, and good operation.
Awesome. Cool. So, I mean, to be honest, conversation's been super insightful as usual, and thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I think I want to use the last minute or so, so in case people want to reach out to you, getting more deep conversations when it comes to the different stages of scaling a business, or even figure out how your company, Creative, you guys can help them, like how people can find you, get in touch with you.
Simplest will be alchemative.com. We're pretty active on the website. I could be reached out to, directly. I can share my details. So that will be the fastest and quickest way. We will be more than glad to provide, Vincent. So anyone basically comes to your channel or from this effort, more than happy to provide a, audit. We're pretty comprehensive. We provide reports around that. We will be happy to do that. I will share my details, whenever we actually run this on the socials. I'm happy to help anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hamas. Pleasure. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you soon. Yeah. Have a nice one.
Lovely talking to you, Vincent.
Uh,
So thank you very
See you.
much.
Take care. Bye bye.